All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us this morning. The primary goal of this is to discuss unemployment as it pertains to COVID-19, and this is being hosted by the SBDC. And we will also be talking about the laws that are applicable, that are relevant to unemployment. So I promise I'll try to keep that part brief. There are lots of resources out there for access to more details on these laws. However, they do interact with unemployment, so I don't want to forget the details in those. So, like Becky mentioned, we are going to be having some Q&A. We have a lot of attendees registered for this call, so please know that we may not be able to get to your questions right away, but I am recording this. We will share it, and we will try to get to your questions as best as we can. I have lots of slides to share for the first portion of this, and then we will jump into some Q&A. Hey, I did just briefly want to mention that this is provided by the Larimer SBDC. They offer training, consulting, and other resources. It is funded by Small Business Administration, Front Range Community College, and to my understanding, in some part through the city of Fort Collins. So if you haven't used the SBDC before, please feel free to check that out. My name is Tina Todd. I'll be your presenter today. I'm the co-founder of simplyHR, a human resource consulting firm in Fort Collins. I do want to mention that I am a certified HR professional. I'm not an attorney, and I'm also not a CPA, so I will not be giving you legal or tax advice. And this is general HR advice. So if you have very specific questions, of course, we would want to have a discussion to make sure you're getting relevant information for your particular situation. I also wanted to give everyone a quick reminder to please make sure to take care of yourselves first. I know that this is hectic for everybody, whether you're essential or non-essential. This is really, really stressful. So do what you can to take care of yourself, and then you can take care of everybody else. Also, if you have essential staff, let's try to make sure that they are taking care of themselves also, so that they can do the best for your business and your clients. Okay, so just quickly, some topics that I'm going to cover, and on these webinars, I always feel like I'm sort of doing the telephone game, so that feels like an appropriate picture for today. I'm going to be going over Colorado-specific legislation as it pertains to paid time off in Colorado. I'm also going to as briefly as possible, be covering the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. I'll also be very, very briefly touching on the newest CARES Act, which is the financial relief package. And then, of course, we'll be chatting about unemployment and getting to some Q&A. So for starters, we do have the Colorado Health Emergency Leave with Pay rules. So this became effective March 26th, and initially it is good for 30 days or longer if we continue the state of disaster emergency. So it could go for up to 120 days, so through the summer. So what this requires is that employers in these specific industries pay their employee 4 days of paid sick leave for the time off that they are taking for symptoms related to COVID-19, for seeking diagnosis, or if they have been diagnosed or have a positive test result related to COVID-19. The reason behind this is Governor Polis wanted to make sure we are not incentivizing people to come to work when they are sick, and we are in fact incentivizing them to stay home, especially because these industries have a higher risk of spreading the illness throughout workplaces. This pay would be at an employee's regular rate of pay for 4 days, for regularly scheduled days. This is separate from the federal act, and this may provide more pay to someone than the federal act requires. So when you're looking at two that contradict each other, you have to provide whichever rate is higher to the employee. This one provides only 4 days of sick leave. I'll go into the federal rules, which pay more days of paid sick. So that is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, so FFCRA. This became effective yesterday, April 1st. So you'll want to make sure you're complying with this immediately. If you have employees who fall under these categories, there is also a poster requirement that became effective yesterday. So again, initially the requirement said that it was effective April 2nd. However, the Department of Labor posted new information saying it is effective April 1st. This applies to all employers with under 500 employees. So I'm assuming all of you on the call fall under this. This is for employees no matter how long they have worked for you. So this is different than a lot of other paid sick leave laws that have a probationary period. This is also required paid sick leave for part-time and full-time employees. So this is providing.
This is Becky. I'm going to jump in when someone has a specific question. Is this for anyone who says they are sick?
Yeah, good question. So this is for someone who has a specific either immunocompromised system, if they have something that would put them at a higher risk and they have a physician or it's been recommended by the CDC that their particular ailment, disability, whatever the case may be, would put them at a higher risk and the CDC is recommending that they self-quarantine, or if they have something from their physician that's requiring that, or if there is an employee who is seeking medical diagnosis and they have documentation of that seeking diagnosis. This requires up to 10 days or 2 weeks at their regular rate of pay, up to $511 per day. So that's the first half of the Paid Sick Leave Act. The second half of it is 2/3 of their regular rate of pay, so less pay possibly, up to $200 per day if they are caring for somebody who falls under one of those first 3 categories, or if their child's school is closed and they have childcare responsibilities around that. Or there is number 6 here. Honestly, nobody knows what number 6 means, even some of the very best employment attorneys in the US. The idea is that there could be additional complications that come out with COVID-19. And so this is sort of a catch-all to incorporate other things that we see come about based on COVID-19. Questions that have come from this particular thing is, if there is an employee who has childcare responsibilities, yet they're able to work around that schedule, you do not have to pay them the paid sick leave if they are able to continue working. If they are at home working an abbreviated schedule though, and some of their time is going to childcare because their child's school or provider is closed, then you would pay them for the actual time worked and possibly make up the difference with up to $200 per day. Any other questions on that before you want me to move on, Becky?
There are some questions about kind of people that work irregular hours, part-time, maybe they only work once a week. How do they determine how many hours they get paid?
Good question. So for this particular leave, the rule is how much somebody is normally scheduled in their work week. Over the last 2 weeks is a good rule that the DOL has provided. If somebody has a fluctuating schedule, then you should look back to the last 30 days to see what the average is that the employee has worked over the last 30 days, both number of days and average hours worked for a weekly period. And then if you don't have any history with the employee, it is the agreement that the employee was brought on with.
Okay. One final quick question. What if you have never been able to pay sick leave? Any thoughts on that? Where would the funds come from if you've never provided sick leave before?
Yep, so this law is saying that regardless of how large your organization is, as long as you are under 500 employees, this is a mandated requirement for employers if you have employees in one of these 6 categories. There is, however, a tax credit that goes along with this, and I'll have a slide that explains a little more about that. But in theory, you are supposed to be able to collect 100% of the amount you've paid out in the form of a tax credit.
Okay, and how often can someone claim this? So how do you identify, do they have to have proof that, like from a physician? Or
Yep, so we would recommend getting documentation from a physician, or if it's because the school is closed,
okay.
the employee can collect the information from the school email or the district website in order to validate that they do in fact need this. There's not a lot of direction, to be completely honest, on the Department of Labor website, and it is changing rapidly. They have changed the guidance on this a couple of times, so it's not really clear right now what the best practice is. However, we know from previous required paid sick leave laws from across the country in other circumstances that you typically can have the employee validate the need for the leave from a physician's note.
Okay, and do you have any thoughts on employees that make more generally in tips, like bartenders and servers, more than they make hourly?
Yep, good question. So the regular rate of pay does in fact include tips. And so you'll have to look back at averages over the last, I believe it says it's 60 days in the statute, and calculate out their daily regular rate of pay based on that. And I'm sorry, I forgot to add a slide. This is good for up to 2 weeks or 10 days for employees. So 2 weeks or 10 days for the mandatory FFCRA paid sick leave. And again, there are lots of resources on this. My partner Nikki and I have done webinars just on this particular topic. So you're more than welcome to go to our website too to look at that. It's simplyHRpartners.com, or there are lots of resources on the Department of Labor website also. They have lots of updated Q&As constantly.
Okay, so I have one more question and just want to make a quick statement. A lot of people are asking for these slides, and I will get these slides from Tina and I will email them to you after this workshop. So yes, I will get those to you. And the other question is, what about self-employed? If you're self-employed, how does that work?
So it's interesting. I'll have to look into this for myself, to be honest. And the statute, the full act has said that it is allowable for self-employed individuals to receive a tax credit for paid sick leave. I can't tell you the specifics of how that exactly is going to work. That's something that the tax professionals will hopefully be able to provide us some guidance with, but it is in fact an allowable tax credit through FFCRA. Okay.
And if their employees are already seeking unemployment, or they are, I'm sorry, already receiving unemployment, would this be something on top of that?
Yeah, great question. So FFCRA is only for employees who have work available. So this is only for people who are scheduled to work and who are unable to work because they are ill or taking care of their child. If there is no work to be done, then they will default to unemployment and will not be eligible for FFCRA.
Okay, and do you have a recommendation on how people should mark this on their payroll for a later tax credit?
So we've been recommending that if you are doing your own payroll, or if you have a payroll company creating another line item, so oftentimes companies will have, paid sick leave or paid time off or something like that. You could have specific FFCRA paid sick leave or FFCRA E-FMLA and track some of the hours that the employee is unable to work through that. And then when it comes to your time to file your taxes, then it'll be easy to see what amounts you should be receiving back in the tax credit.
Okay. So some of the questions are moving on to some more stuff that I know you're going to cover. So
Okay.
let's go ahead and move on.
Perfect. So then the second half of FFCRA, as far as leave laws are required, it also includes emergency FMLA. So as many of you know, FMLA typically provides, sorry, I'm trying to speak quickly and then I trip over myself. FMLA typically provides job protection for employers with 50 or more employees. However, this is expanding the FMLA language. It has added a section to the existing FMLA to say that this will apply to employers with under 500 employees. So again, that is much smaller organizations. Typically, FMLA applies to employees who have worked for over a year. Now, this provision applies to employees who have been there for 30 calendar days. And it includes more paid time off at the rate of the regular rate of pay, up to $200 per day for the care of a son or daughter, again, who is not going to school. There is an exemption for this specific provision, not the entire FFCRA Act, but there is a possible exemption for this provision for businesses with fewer than 50 employees. I have to say it gets really complicated once we start digging into this particular area. So I'd recommend finding resources in another way. Again, please check out our website. We have links to talk about the exemption, and you can also find this guidance on the dol.gov. There are lots of details that you'll have to go through, so I won't really be able to answer any questions specific to the exemptions. There is also another exemption that applies to businesses with under 25 employees as it pertains to holding a job for an employee. So yeah, please check out those resources online. E-FMLA requirements, like I mentioned, 2/3 of an employee's regular rate of pay, up to $200. This length of time is actually 12 weeks. The first 10 days can be unpaid through FMLA. However, we know now that the first 10 days would be paid through the FFCRA paid sick leave. So it's essentially up to 12 weeks of total paid time. And again, if you have under 50 employees, there is a chance that you can be exempt from weeks 3 through 12 for this payment. Please check that out on dol.gov. You will have to provide FMLA documents. There are some cases to be made that if you do not provide FMLA documents in the timely manner that the FMLA requires, then the leave taken does not actually count as E-FMLA, and the leave will start when you have provided the appropriate documents. Those documents are also on dol.gov, and simplyHR is providing a free HR platform called HR 360 for the next 30 days, or for 30 days for a small business here. So I'll give you information on how you can sign up for that, and they have the available documents there. Also with
Sorry, one quick question. For FMLA to work, would the employer already have to provide health insurance to their staff?
No, this is not health insurance. This is a partial wage replacement for employees who are unable to work because they are at home taking care of a child.
Okay, Laura, if that doesn't answer your question, just add it to the chat, please. Thanks, Tina.
Sure. Okay. With FFCRA, there is a model notice that is required of all employers in the US. So this is what the poster looks like. Again, it's available on dol.gov and on HR 360, which is something we're making available to everyone for 30 days. You have to sign up on our website though. Because of teleworking circumstances right now, obviously your employee might not see it if you post it with your regular posters, so it is allowable to email it or put it on a shared drive right now, but it must be provided to all employees effective April 1st, which was yesterday. So please make sure you find that. In addition to the FFCRA requirements, there is a tax credit. So again, this tax credit can be up to 100% of the amount you have paid out for paid sick leave and paid FMLA. The tax credit reduces the amount of employment taxes that you are required to pay. If, for example, you have paid out 10 grand in paid sick leave and you only owe $8,000 in paid sick, the IRS has issued a notice saying they are going to write you a check to pay you for the difference. They said it would be as quickly as possible, and of course I have no idea what that means, but you are in fact eligible for a full tax credit for what you have provided for that. So another reason to categorize that in your payroll so you know exactly how much you have paid out. Okay, moving on to another quick CARES Act. So this is the big economic stimulus package that I'm sure you have heard a lot about. The SBDC has done a fantastic job of pushing out information on this, and they have lots of amazing volunteers to help answer questions on it. This provides a paycheck protection program loan that I think we've all seen a lot of information about, a lot of loan forgiveness. There's an employee retention credit, and there are more unemployment benefits. This is a very tax-heavy act. Again, I am not a tax professional, so I'm not going to be giving you tax advice based on this. I do just want to highlight some of the things as it pertains to human resources. So this is also a resource that you have through colorado.gov, and I promise all these pieces will come to play together soon. So this is what the landing page for Colorado's unemployment looks like right now. So they have a ton of great resources for all of these different categories of individuals. I would highly encourage that you go visit that site and read about it from the worker, employer perspective, and all the news that is quickly evolving due to unemployment here in Colorado. This is one that we've been getting a lot of questions on, so I want to clarify the terminology in terms of layoffs. So a temporary layoff is the same as a furlough. Government entities tend to use the word furlough often, and I hope you don't mind, I just had to add a bit of humor. So think of Ross saying we're on a break. So this is a break from your regular workplace. The workplace may not have work for everybody, or it may not have work at all. So in that case, some or all of the employees may be on a temporary furlough if the workplace anticipates having work to do in the near-ish future. Employees in this situation can choose to use any paid time off or vacation time that is available to them. So if you're telling your employees, okay, employee, you're not going to work after this week, you should also be telling them, you know, if we plan on bringing you back, what would you like to do with your PTO? Do you want to hang on to it and keep it in your PTO bank, or do you want us to cash that out for you so that you can use it now? A lot of businesses are preferring that the employee carries it over. However, the employee may get a higher rate of pay if they use their PTO available. If they choose to use PTO now, their unemployment benefits would have to wait until they have exhausted or used all of this PTO, and then the unemployment will kick in after they've received their last check from you for wages or paid time off. If and when they're filing for unemployment, they would indicate that they are job attached. So in other words, they are still working for you. They are still attached to the job that they have for you, but currently there is no work to do at that job. This is in contrast to a layoff, and I've talked to many of you who are going through this, and I know it is probably one of the most difficult things to do as a business and as an HR or manager. It's almost easy to tell somebody they don't have a job because they haven't done a good job or they have done something that breaks the rules. However, when we're telling our employees, you don't have a job or a way to pay for your necessities and it's completely out of your control, this is a much, much harder conversation to have. So for any of you in this situation, I'm really sorry that you're having to go through it. It's unfortunately a reality that so many businesses are facing right now. So in this situation, we don't know when business is going to come back. So these businesses have chosen to do an indefinite layoff for their employees. In this case, like all Colorado separations, you must pay out any remaining and unused vacation or paid time off. You cannot let the employees forfeit that amount. It must be paid out because we're treating this as a separation. Any questions on the terminology, do you think, Becky?
So a couple of questions have been, can an employee file for a job attached unemployment if they are still working at a reduced rate?
Yeah, good question. So I'll have a slide on that particular topic.
Okay, perfect. You are good then.
Okay. So when we talk to businesses, they're always wondering, you know, how do we decide who to lay off? So here are some options. And before you make any decisions, I would very much consider that partial unemployment situation that somebody had a question on. And again, I'll give you more details. So all of these pieces play together. So first, you could ask for volunteers. So this is a voluntary furlough. Maybe somebody's in a great financial situation. Maybe they have employee or kids at home and they would prefer not to work and they'd prefer to stay home with their kids. In those situations, it's great if you have volunteers who are saying, pick me first to not work and give the remaining hours to somebody else. If they are volunteering to furlough, they do not get unemployment benefits unless their hours are cut the same as everybody else's. If there is work to be done and they are voluntarily choosing not to do it, then in that particular situation, they don't get unemployment. I would also specify a period of time. So maybe somebody could say, I'm okay for 4 weeks. Don't schedule me for 4 weeks. After that, I might need to reassess my financial situation. So document that with the employee. We're not going to schedule you for 4 weeks. After that, you will be considered with the same fairness as the rest of the employees. Another idea is to cut percentages evenly across the business. So for example, you cut every single employee's schedule by say 20%. In those situations, all employees would be eligible for unemployment. They would be eligible for a partial unemployment. You could also consider seniority or who has the most hours. If you have a very part-time person, it's obviously not as impactful for them to not be working as it is to somebody who counts on a lot of regular hours through you. If you have cross-trained employees, they might be the most beneficial to hang on to for the longest because they're going to be able to perform the most functions of the job. Something else to consider, and I really don't have time to dive into the complexities of this, but if you have exempt staff who are paid on a salary basis and you do not track hours for them and they're truly exempt, in order for them to keep their exempt status, they have to be paid a salary of $684 per week in any week they conduct any work. So if you have a manager who is exempt, if their salary is over and above that, you could consider bringing their salary down to $684 per week. But if you bring them below $684 per week, you have to track all of their hours worked. You have to clock their punches in and out, and you have to treat them as a non-exempt employee. That one's really specific, so please reach out to me directly if you have questions on that. It's a little complicated. Okay, so then as we get into unemployment insurance, if you have employees in several states, I would consider that it varies drastically by state. Some states offer as much as almost $1,200 per week. Some are as low as $300 or so per week. So Colorado, for example, offers a partial wage replacement. It's approximately 55%. There's a very complicated calculation, and there's a maximum in Colorado of up to $573 per week. I would keep in mind that the systems are obviously really bogged down. Nationally, there were 6.5 million people. Combined with the week before, it's 11 million in the US over the past 2 weeks. Colorado, we had 61,000 applicants last week. And I know somebody asked this in the chat, do not plan on controlling your state unemployment insurance rates. Several years ago when the city of Estes Park flooded, we saw an increase for everybody's rates across the state, and that was just one tiny little town in the state of Colorado. Considering how many people are on it now, I don't know what it's going to do to unemployment rates in the future, but there's no way we will be able to control our individual rates. So I wouldn't even start to worry about that. It's out of your control. The waiting period has recently been waived. So typically for Colorado, employees have to wait 7 days after their last day to begin receiving unemployment benefits. That waiting period has been waived, so employees are eligible to get a partial wage replacement immediately after they stop working or immediately after they have received their last paid time off check from you. However, the time to get through the system is obviously taking longer. So the employee may receive a check for back pay for immediately after they lost their job. With the CARES Act, there are several ways in which this affects unemployment. So CARES provides an additional $600 for 13 weeks for employees who are on unemployment insurance. So I would consider the workforce that you keep because of this. And I'll get into some more thoughts around it in just a minute in my next slide. If an employer is using a self-insured unemployment insurance program, there is no CARES supplement. So many nonprofits or other small businesses use a privately funded self-insured unemployment insurance program. The CARES $600 per week supplement is only applicable for employees on the state unemployment insurance program. Independent contractors, I know that was a question in the chat earlier, may be eligible for unemployment through CARES now. That is going to be through a pandemic unemployment assistance program. And I checked on the state of Colorado site this morning. They are not taking applications for that yet. However, they said to check back soon and they'll have more information. I don't know when that will roll out. Also, the CARES Act has said that if the employer is exempt from paying the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act for the care of a child, then the unemployment through the state of Colorado may provide that wage replacement to the employee if they're unable to work because they're taking care of a child. So again, all of these rules are overlapping, lots of special circumstances. So we'll try to address as many of the broad questions as possible. I see there are a ton coming in, and we'll try to follow up and get some more questions answered either through the simplyHR site or through the SBDC. So Colorado WorkShare, this is something that Becky mentioned earlier. This is for employees whose pay has been cut between 10 and 40% from what they were receiving previously. The reason for this is that, again, Colorado unemployment insurance is a partial wage replacement. So it replaces the pay for up to about 55%. So then if you consider if an employee's hours have been cut more than 10 to 40%, they're basically falling under the unemployment insurance. Oftentimes, this is a huge benefit for employees and employers to use the WorkShare program. Employers must apply through the state first. If you go to colorado.gov and search for WorkShare unemployment, you'll see a fact sheet for the employee and the employer. The employer can apply, and then the employee will still apply through the state through the partial wage replacement. Something that I will mention with this, with the new CARES Act, employees who are participating in WorkShare and receiving unemployment are also getting that extra $600 wage replacement. So prior to the CARES Act, this was a huge benefit to employers and employees to keep them still employed and to keep their wages close to whole. However, what we've seen now is that employees who are eligible for at least partial unemployment literally do not want to come to work anymore, because between the unemployment and the additional $600 per week, they could potentially be making more on unemployment than they were making with their regular wages at a small business. What this means for you is I would very much consider, instead of taking all of your employees' wages or pay or schedules down a certain percentage, I would genuinely consider cutting the entire workforce by a percentage, keeping some employees on for their full schedule, and then laying off or temporarily laying off the other employees so they are 100% on unemployment. The employees who have work available for them cannot qualify for unemployment if they are refusing suitable work. So again, we're seeing a lot of employees who are not wanting to go to work, and genuinely we appreciate that some of them are truly fearful of going to work. So I would talk to them, I would have individual conversations, I would try to provide as many precautions as possible. Some things that we're also seeing are organizations are offering premium pay, some are calling it a thank you pay, others are just calling it premium pay. We've seen some calling it hazard pay. I particularly don't think it's a great idea to proclaim that you think it's hazardous by calling it hazard pay. Completely up to you though. Flexible schedules, so maybe it's possible for people to work around their required home obligations, and so that's a great benefit if employees can work around that. Also, comp time. If you have exempt employees and they are essential, they're probably working a ton of hours right now. I would consider, if possible, to give them a half day off or a full day off if you're still able to run the operation with that. And the same even goes for part-time employees. Maybe you can give them a half time off with pay if you are still considered essential. Our workforce is very values driven, so I would really communicate what the values are and what the value of that particular employee's work is doing for our community. Hopefully that helps them feel driven to stay engaged with the workplace. And then I would also consider state unemployment insurance eligibility. Again, if you have a full-time schedule for them and they are refusing suitable work, they are not eligible for state unemployment insurance. Again, provide all the precautions necessary so that they don't feel like it's a dangerous place to go. Hopefully you can provide telework in some situations. Otherwise, you should be cutting your workplace by 50% at a time. You should have all of the cleaning protocols in place that are recommended by the CDC. But those are things that will hopefully keep your employees coming back to work. I have just a few more slides to go through, and then I'll start jumping into some more of the Q&A. So managing instability. We have a lot of employers who are not quite sure what to tell their employees right now, and we would just recommend being transparent. Don't be overly verbose in the communication. Keep it fairly concise if possible, but be honest. If you don't know what work is going to look like in 2 weeks, that's fine. Tell them, but tell them where you're at currently. Communicate changes as soon as possible because they're obviously in under a lot of stress too. So if they can know that you are doing your best to communicate changes as they're occurring, hopefully it will help put their minds at ease. Also, a lot of employees are struggling with mental health, with food insecurity, so please share those resources that are out there in the community with your employees. Tell them what funding is available through unemployment if they're laid off. Also, the food banks are offering great resources, and there is a job board on the unemployment insurance page. I have a friend who does HR for Amazon. She said they're hiring people for $18 on the spot and getting them trained immediately. So there are opportunities out there. I would encourage your employees who really need the help to look into that. Also for health insurance, the state marketplace has opened an open enrollment period. So if somebody needs health insurance, they can apply right now for Connect for Health Colorado, I think that's what it's called, health insurance, and it is a financially subsidized program. United Way has a 211 line connecting individuals to resources throughout the community. And of course, you know that the SBDC is helping a lot of businesses with small business administration loans. So please look into all of those things and share it with other business owners and employees. I did mention that we have a lot of resources available through our website. We have a specific COVID-19 site. It includes lots of previously recorded webinars we've done with more specifics on these paid leave laws. So I would encourage you to look into those if you have questions. That page also includes links to the Department of Labor for topics that we feel are relevant to small businesses. And there is a sign up for the free access to HR 360 for 30 days. That will give you updates. That page is put together by a content team backed by a legal team. It also has all of the required posters, and it does have the Family Medical Leave Act documents that are required. With that, we would also subscribe you to a newsletter and include you on invites to our company-specific webinars. And of course, we'll try to keep the SBDC included in all of those things too, so you should be getting information through them also. Okay, that was a lot of speed talking, and let's see what questions we can tackle.
All right, so I'm hearing a little bit of background, so if everyone can mute themselves, that would be great. And Tina, I'm just going to scroll back to the top and start from the top and work our way down.
Sounds good.
Okay, so Laura, you had asked about, you had filled out an SBA loan application and you haven't heard back. That's something that I would contact the SBDC for, 498-9295. Will I be able to access the forgivable loans through the CARES Act to pay my room rent? I have no employees, so there's no payroll. Is that a question for you or the SBDC?
Question. So the amount of the loan is based on the amount of payroll you've had over the last year. And then you can use the loan for things such as payroll or building expenses. I don't know if you would qualify without having payroll expenses, and I'm not sure off the top of my head if you can use your own independent contractor pay or self-employed pay as a qualification to receive that. Okay. Sorry, I don't know that one off the top of my head.
No worries. A lot of people have asked if this is being recorded. Yes, it is. And we will get this information to you guys as quickly as we can. Can you confirm that the work search requirement for UI benefits has been, released or relaxed?
I would imagine it has to be, because there's no way the state's going to keep up with this many people searching for jobs. So I would assume so.
Okay. Question regarding the 600 coming in from the federal government for unemployment. Would underemployed part-time employees be eligible for this as well?
So my understanding with the way the act is written is that anyone who's receiving unemployment through the state unemployment insurance program can also receive the additional $600 per week. That's why I think we're seeing that employees who are working partial schedules, businesses are really having a hard time getting them into the businesses because they could essentially make more not working.
Okay. As a sole proprietor, is it possible to apply for the $10,000 loan advance in the emergency loan program and also apply for unemployment benefits?
Unemployment benefits, definitely. I'm not sure about the other one. And again, it's a very tax heavy law. I don't feel confident speaking to that one.
Okay, so that one we can possibly do some more research on. I have clients saying that employees can make more on unemployment than rather being paid at current levels. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so that's accurate. So again, the unemployment is about 50 55% of previous wages, plus an additional $600 per week. The maximum somebody can get through unemployment is $573 per week. So it could potentially be $1,200 a week almost through unemployment insurance, depending on how much they were making previously. That is, the $600 per week is good for 13 weeks. So once that 13 weeks has exhausted, they'll drop down to the regular amount for the rest of the 13 weeks. Unemployment insurance is typically 26 weeks through the state of Colorado.
Okay. This gal has a question about independent contractor options for unemployment. How do they prove income they are not getting?
So it's interesting. This is a bit of a catch-22 because sometimes employees choose not to report all of their tips, and sometimes independent contractors don't report all of their income as taxable income. The government and the IRS is going to be looking at filed taxable income in, I believe it's the previous year, as the amount that you might calculate unemployment insurance on for independent contractors. So hopefully you've claimed all your income.
Okay. I'm being told the new UE benefits for freelancers are not available. Have you heard of any, if that will
That's
change?
correct. Yep. So pandemic unemployment assistance is not open yet on the Colorado unemployment insurance site yet, but it says to check back soon for that application.
Can an employee file for job attached unemployment if they are still working at a reduced rate?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Can I pay my staff partially now? They would get partial unemployment for the rest. And then would they also get the 600 extra benefit, or will only people collecting full unemployment get that extra benefit? I think you went over that, but.
And I can't say with 100% confidence, but my understanding is that if anybody is enrolled on the state unemployment insurance program through a traditional employment arrangement, they are going to collect that $600 per week.
Okay. Let's see. And you kind of went over if the CARES Act will help sole proprietors. Actually, if you have questions about any of the grants or loans, again, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, but I feel like you should contact the SBDC and talk to one of their team members that can kind of go over the different grants and loans and kind of give you advice on those.
Yeah, so the CARES Act is very tax specific. I am not an expert on the CARES Act, and to my understanding, the SBDCs, the SBA, and really bankers are going to sort of hold the keys to all of that because they're going to be approving the loans and the loan reductions and forgiveness programs and things like that.
Okay. Just to clarify, WorkShare is not eligible for the $600 from CARES.
I'm gonna have to double check.
Okay.
So how about this? How about if I do research specifically on that topic?
Okay.
Because obviously that is something that is very of interest to lots of people, and I will post a mini blog post on the simplyHR website for it, and I will share it with you.
Okay, thank you. You had mentioned the job board for the $18 an hour. When you have a moment, can you just type that link in the chat because people are asking for that?
So if people go to this website, there is a link for Find a Job.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's see. Do you have any thoughts on where to find the best info or support for solopreneurs and sole proprietors without employees? I think that kind of would be probably an SBDC question as well.
It may be, and again, unemployment is going to have something called pandemic unemployment assistance that's not available quite yet.
Okay. Someone just wanted clarification. For employees who have had their hours reduced, they can claim part of their unemployment benefits only if they apply, if the employer applies and qualifies for the Colorado Work-Share program.
So typically that's the way it's supposed to work. However, I'm pretty confident that even if the employee just goes directly to unemployment, they would be approved for a partial wage replacement. I think it sort of cuts out a step because if the employee applies directly, then you're going to receive notification and be asked to respond. My understanding is that under the Colorado Work-Share program, you may not have to respond. And I have to admit, this Work-Share program has existed for a long time, and I honestly don't know if anybody's used it before, like a couple of months ago. So lots of new questions as related to Work-Share.
And Tina, we really appreciate you. I'm throwing these at you and you're just bouncing back with answers, so we truly appreciate that.
No problem.
Let's see, what time is it? We've got about 5 more minutes. I am in my 3rd year of business and I just started paying myself an income. Will that be allowed to be used as income for unemployment?
Yeah, if you filed taxes on that and you have all the documentations, then it should be.
Okay. Let's see, can we apply for unemployment now? We are an S Corp with only her husband and herself as employees, and then also apply for the PPP grants and loans. So I think people are asking if they file for unemployment, can they still apply for the grants and loans? Or is that more of a question for the grants and loans people?
Good question. I should know the answer to that, and I don't off the top of my head.
Okay. If employees don't want to come to work because they make more on unemployment, is that grounds to let them go? That would be kind of a one-on-one question, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would really do some seek to understand kind of conversations in that to see if there's anything else you can provide to the employee. Are they feeling unsafe because of a particular situation? Technically, you know, if this were any other situation and an employee was refusing suitable work, then you would typically just terminate their employment. However, I'd be a little more hesitant to do that, especially if they have an underlying medical condition that raises their concerns. Maybe another arrangement or possibility could be to notify the employee that you're going to have to backfill their position and you may not be able to guarantee them hours in the future. So I think that might be a possibility. And sorry, going back to the unemployment plus grants and loans. So if you receive grants and loans, they're supposed to be used for business expenses and payroll. So I don't know how that would overlap if you are not using payroll and just receiving unemployment. I sort of think it's one or the other, but not positive.
Okay. Do business owners qualify for unemployment? So small business owners with 1 or 2 employees?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have any idea when staff would get unemployment checks or the $600 a week checks? Are they back on that?
We've heard from some businesses' employees that unemployment has told them the checks would be 4 to 6 weeks. The $600 we've heard could be as early as April 9th for some states, but this is being managed by the state unemployment insurance offices, so it really depends on the state.
Okay. I am not showing income for 2019. I just started making an income in 2020. Can I use that for filing for unemployment?
So for unemployment, there is a base period that they look at. The typical base period is the first 4 of the last 5 completed calendar quarters. So that would essentially, since right now we just completed a calendar quarter, January through March, they would look at all of 2019. There is an alternate base period, which is the last 4 completed calendar quarters. So that would be April 1st of 2019 through March 31st of 2020. So that would be the period of time that they would calculate your average on. I believe that would be the same for self-employed, but I am not sure. That is typically the employee calculation.
Okay, so we're running right at our hour right now, and I have about 35 new questions that are coming in. So, and I apologize, I don't know the answer to this, but Tina, is there a way to print or save this group chat? We can look at the questions and then we can send out a response to everyone.
Yep, I'll have access to the group chat.
Okay.
And I will do my best to answer your questions.
Awesome.
And like I said, the 2 questions that came up repeatedly on partial unemployment and the $600, I'll do some research around that and make sure we get a really comprehensive answer out to that.
Okay.
A lot of the CARES stuff is a little outside of my scope.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us. We truly appreciate it. You guys have some great questions, and I feel like from some of the comments you guys are getting the answers that you need. You do have the option of, Tina, do you have a phone number or a link for simplyHR?
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
So we'll have Tina add that to the chat. You can also meet with Tina through the SBDC. You can schedule an appointment with her there. So we would be happy to do that as well. We appreciate you all. We're here for you guys. If you have any questions or concerns, please give us a call or visit our website. Anything else, Tina?
No, I think that's all. Thank you so much. And yeah, hang in there to all of you business owners. I know this is not fun, but please let us know if you have questions and we'll do our best.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.